How to be a student in an AI world. These are going to be 9 steps for effective studying. And really, the important part, what we really want to wrap our minds around, is AI is a tool, and it is a tool that can help us with studying. It is not something that is going to take over our studying or the effort that we put into it, but it's going to make us, or it's going to help us to create more durable learning, so learning sticks. So as instructional designers or students, we can enter into the learning process with a different perspective, because ever since November 2022, when ChatGPT came out and made AI available to pretty much everybody, the landscape for studying has changed. And we would be remiss not to use AI as we study for different topics, things, whatever it may be. I'm personally in a course right now where I'm learning how to create products with AI from MIT, and that's just an amazing course. I'm using these exact techniques to help me make that content stick, because it's not my area of expertise. Well, it wasn't, but it's becoming more and more how to build those products with AI. Using it is just helping me just really become much better at learning and making learning stick. So without further ado, let's dive in and take a look at the first few things that we should do. And the first thing that we want to kind of keep in mind, and always keep in mind, is don't use AI in isolation, because AI does hallucinate. So you have to, and really that's a big thing for when we're studying. If AI hallucinates, well, we're checking the sources and we're looking at things. So it's making us better critical thinkers as we utilize some of these strategies. And remember, when we learn anything, we do not learn content within isolation. We always want the context of what we're learning to be right up front. So never use AI within isolation. So don't use it, and that's the only thing that you do. You want to make sure that the learning that you're doing, the studying that you're doing, is contextualized with whatever else that you need. And then number 2 is the first thing we want to do, and this doesn't even require AI, right, is make a goal for the study session. So within the next 20 minutes, my goal for this is within the next 20 minutes, I'm going to be able to define clearly the 9 steps for effective studying. And we're going to utilize AI in several of those steps. So a study session goal, and one, I was reading a paper, and my goal was to be able to utilize content from this paper that I was studying to help me creatively solve a few issues that I was running into, and it actually helped. So it took me 45 minutes, and the strategy, I use these strategies, and now that content is stuck with me because it helps me to create more networks within my own mind to really solidify that new knowledge with previous knowledge that I've already had. But we'll get into that. The next step, so we're going to set a goal, then we're going to predict what you learn. Why is it important to predict? Because, as I just kind of foreshadowed, when we begin using our prediction, what will I learn? How will the questions that I want to ask myself, what am I going to learn? How does that connect to my previous learning, and how will it help me in the future? So as we start making those predictions, guess what? That starts opening our mind up to create those networks where this new content now connects with the previous content that we already have, the previous content and experience in the white matter of our brain. That's where we make these networks. And when we connect new learning with our previous learning or previous experiences, new experience, new learning with the previous stuff that we have, guess what? It becomes more durable. We're less likely to forget it. We're more likely to be able to use it in creative ways to solve complex issues. And I also like, when it comes to predicting, I like to use AI to give me a quiz, and then give me feedback. So there's multiple ways you can do that. But I do this prior to, so right after I predict kind of how this is going, what I'm going to learn, how is it going to connect to my past experience, how am I going to use this moving forward, then I create a quiz. I just go into ChatGPT. I like ChatGPT 4, so I go in there and I say, if I have a specific document, I'll link to that. Say, read this document. If it can't read that document because there's stuff in the way, getting in the way of it getting there, I'm not going to just throw it into ChatGPT. I'm going to ask, okay, so ask general questions, and I'm going to have the topic of that document, and then the exact prompt that I use is utilize this content, that I'll give it that content, so the link, or give it the name of the content, and ask me a multiple choice question, and do not give me the answer. Once I give you a response, give me a summary response of why the correct answer is correct. Then ask me another question. Do this 3 times. And when I do that, I get 3 questions where it's going to ask me something. It's going to force me to respond. And then it's going to give me a micro learning of why the right answer is the right answer. And I've done all of this within the first 8 minutes of studying, right? Because I can go through that and I already have micro learning happening. So I'm already connecting with my previous experience. So I have a goal, predicted what I'm going to do, and I've even taken a quiz, because quizzing yourself is a fantastic learning tool. Don't just think of quizzing and testing as something that we do for assessment. It's something that we can do to help make learning stick, especially when we do it. And in this case, we connected it with micro learning, so it made it just stick that much better. And then after that, before I even go in and read the content, I'm going to say, okay, and there's multiple tools out there. I happen to use Merlin. It's a Google Chrome extension that I use. And as I'm using Merlin, it's creating those summaries, and I can go in and type in, okay, summarize this content for me. So if I'm looking at something on a website or within the LMS, I'll just say, okay, summarize this content. What does it mean? What are the key points? And it gives me those summaries, if you can believe that. And when it gives me those summaries, that means I am wholly prepared to study now. So I've done these 5 actions, and it's probably taken me 10 minutes, and I'm already better prepared to learn and able to retain more content than I would if I would have just jumped in. Because we always have to remember that, yes, we're going to read the content if it's text content, but one of the worst ways to study is to reread something. Believe it or not, there's almost 0 that you gain from rereading. So we have to do things to help us retain that info and be able to use it, because that's the goal. We want to just be able to use this learning. We don't want to have this learning and it just is in isolations. We want to be able to use it. So we've set a goal. We've predicted. What else did we do? We set a goal. We predicted. You remember these that are coming up? Set a goal, predicted, we've quizzed ourselves, and now AI is helping us to summarize. So we've used AI twice within 10, 15 minutes to be able to learn something, where it's helping us really connect with that white matter of our brain. So don't think of AI as anything but a tool. It's your study buddy at this point. And then once we're here, once we've done that, then engage, acquire that knowledge, whatever it is. If it's an article, read the article. If it's a video, watch the video. Whatever it may be, however it is, it's completely up to you. So I'm going to speak mostly towards articles that we have to read and then gain stuff from. And the key here, let's say it's a 40-page article. You can get through that fairly quickly, and you can have a high retention if you read several paragraphs, stop, quiz yourself. And we want to go higher than just basic recall. We want to say, okay, how can I use this information? And give yourself a test question. Create test questions. Say, okay, a possible test question I would get from this is, boom. Now, how can I apply what I just learned? Is it going to be effective? And then teach yourself. And that comes from Richard Feynman, an amazing physicist, one of the most popular, well, I can't say popular, but one of the most renowned physicists of his time. has the basically just says teach somebody in simple words what that content is. So stop every few paragraphs, teach yourself that in words and natural language. So I know AI is natural language processing, but we can use our natural language, so smaller terms, to help us understand, because once you teach it in those terms, you can utilize it really well. I like to say, I like to teach it to myself like I'm in the 5th grade, and it really works well. It helps that content stick. So we're going to stop every several paragraphs, page, whatever you choose, quiz yourself, reteach yourself, move on to the next one, and then continue to add. So as we read the 2nd page, the 3rd page, we're going to quiz ourselves, and we're also going to reteach all the way from the beginning at times too. So we're going to mix things up quite a bit. So that's how we acquire that content. And then we create our own microlearning. How do we create our own microlearning? I, in particular, really love this piece because we create our own microlearning by the teaching of ourselves. We now re-input these 4 pages that we've read, or however many pages, and we condense it into key points. And then we can summarize these key points ourselves. So that's how we can create our own microlearning. We could do that really quickly. So now we've got halfway through this article, and we've only been studying it for 45 minutes maybe. And a quick bonus, here's our bonus here. How do we know when to take a break? Because you've done a lot. And this is going to feel a lot more difficult than just reading or just taking in something. And because you're putting in effort, we're actually doing deliberate practice within the world of academics by doing this stuff. And that's if you want to learn more about deliberate practice, Dr. Erickson is the one that came up with that, and he can teach you everything you need to know about deliberate practice. This is an applied version of that. And so let's get back to our bonus. My apologies. So how do we know when to take a break? Well, we know when to take a break because we have our attention span. Our attention span is just at a high level. Then we can physically feel it. You can mentally feel it kind of go down a little bit. I start to wander, start to look off, gaze. Oh, I wonder what. Oh, I need to paint the wall, or whatever it may be. You know, whenever we see ourselves, feel ourselves starting to chase squirrels, if you will, excuse me, that's when we just take a momentary break. Take 3 to 5 minutes. Doesn't mean we have to take forever. Just take a few minutes and get back at it. So if you've been going 45 minutes, that is a long time to be engaged in this learning process in this way. So take a break, 5 minutes. That's all you need. Do some air squats, do something physical, get up, walk, move, get the body, all the blood flowing again, get the mind clear, then come back at it and continue on with the process. So where are we at now? So we are at step 7 now. Step 8, remember we've been self-explaining and teaching along the way as well. We did that. We looked at that. Where did we look at that? Whoops. After the summary, we looked at it as we're going through this. So now self-explain or teach from those, the further out you reach in the document you're reading or the contents you're studying or the content you're studying, reach back and self-explain and teach yourself all the way from the beginning. And when you notice that you're teaching yourself from the beginning, you are blazing through this content. You are not slowly going through it. And then as you connect with all of those other pieces and you're self-explaining and teaching, those networks are connecting with all of that previous experience. So your learning's becoming more and more durable. Believe it or not, it's an amazing way. And then distribute the practice with AI. So I love testing and quizzing, as I said from the beginning. So we know that after this session, within 24 hours, you're going to have a forgetting curve. You're not going to forget that 70% as if you just sat in a lecture or something like that within that 24 hours, but still the forgetting is there. So have AI create you that test again. Use the specific stuff that you studied, have it create that test for you, and that's going to slow that forgetting curve down, as they say. And then as you don't want to do that in another 24 hours, you really just want to do that maybe 48 hours later. That's kind of the key. So distribute your practice, and those practice points for that content expand out. Because there's this thing from Robert and Elizabeth Bjork called the theory that they have is that practice, that learning, that studying should be difficult. Their thought process is called desirable difficulty. So you want a certain amount of tension. We need tension for the learning to stick, believe it or not. So the desirable difficulty is to just wait long enough so it becomes difficult enough to apply to something or to recall. So remember, we're not just trying to recall, we're trying to encode this content, structure the content in a way that sticks, and then store it in a way that we can retrieve it so we can use it in creative ways to solve complex issues. And when we can do this, when we can acquire it, store it, and recall it really quickly, that gives us more energy to be able to use it in a way that is creative to solve these complex issues. So from my perspective, that distributed practice should happen at 24 hours, then maybe 48 hours, then a week, and then you could just continually move it out however you see fit from there. And the distributed practice is not just recall. We want those higher orders of learning. So I want to be able to synthesize this content and use it within these parameters to solve different types of issues. So ask yourself those tough questions. And remember that as you're asking yourself those tough questions, it should be difficult. You should have a level of difficulty within studying because that helps it stick. So if you're ever studying, you say, oh, wow, this is way too easy, then guess what? It's not likely that it's going to stick. So ask yourself questions that help you really apply what you're learning in more and more creative ways and use that as the difficulty piece. So I hope this was helpful. These are the 9 steps. Let's run through them really quickly, just as a quick summary. Don't use AI in isolation. Create a goal for the study session. Predict what you're going to learn. Use AI to quiz you and give you feedback. That creates that microlearning right now before you even know. So you're learning even as you're preparing to learn. Use AI to summarize the content you're learning. Tons of tools out there for summaries. I use Merlin, which is a Google add-on, a Google extension, I should say. And then acquire that knowledge, read, watch, whatever you're going to do. And as you do it, stop, quiz yourself. And as you're stopping and looking at that, you're creating your own micro-learning. And how do we do that? One great way is to self-explain or teach that to someone else. We want to self-explain and teach as we have grasp a larger piece of that content, and then simply distribute your practice. So don't just be one and done, doing 24 hours, 48 hours a week, and so on, but continue to elongate the distance in between the practices. So I hope this was helpful for you to be a student in an AI world. 9 steps. Remember, AI is a tool to help. It's not there to replace what you're doing. So if you like this kind of content, give us a like and subscribe in there, and let us know what you think and how you use AI to help you study.